So hey, I'm Zach, and this is Midnight Motorist, a minigame you should be familiar with now, assuming you clicked on this video with love for FNAF 6. It is a minigame hidden away in the second catalogue that has been theorised to death, yet has no clear meaning or any place on any timeline. While new theories state it may show William Afton's abductions for fear gas experiments based on recent books, the current consensus is that instead, this mustard man is William on the night of Charlie Emily's murder at Fredbear's family diner, coming home drunk, that the runaway kid is the crying child, placing his death before hers, and the man in the chair is Michael Afton, Foxy Bro, uncaring, yet somewhat looking out for his kid brother. Junior's is the bar William is banned from, showing his state that night, and this grave relates to the Twisted Ones, animatronics from the second book of the Silver Eyes trilogy, that would bury themselves and dig themselves back up at night. This information comes stemming from the fact of the rain matching the security puppet minigame, the files calling this minigame later that night, and the fact the car we drive is purple, the same vehicle William drives away in. This theory, however, will be different. It will state that all that is wrong, and instead it will be about an idea that was floated around yet without evidence back when FNAF 6 first released, that the runaway kid isn't the crying child, but William Afton himself. That Midnight Motorist is the first event in the FNAF timeline, and is imperative for understanding the characters we know and love. Immediately, 3 issues I have with that current interpretation. 1. What thematically does this add? Why do we need to know what Afton does after the murder? Whether he visits the bar or not? Whether he was drunk or not? Every other minigame in this franchise tells us something new, and honestly, this doesn't. 2. If he did just kill for the first time, I've seen enough true crime to know he wouldn't be so dismissive or casual to his sons. Even if he is a sociopath, which he most certainly is, why would he care what his son is doing that night? No evidence of an adrenaline rush or even fear of getting caught with it or losing his income revenue. But really, why has no one asked? 3. Where is Elizabeth Afton? This would be the Afton house, shortly before the party. This would suggest that she is clawed by Baby, unless you want to suggest that Elizabeth was clawed by an animatronic designed for death well before anyone had died. If she wasn't born yet, our dates are skewed. And then, where is her mother? Michael explicitly says to leave him alone, indicating there was only one other person in that house with them that night, and that he is male. So then, looking for evidence when no one else could find it, I want to turn to my favourite source of information, The Silver Eyes, the book from 2015 that is deemed controversial within theorising communities. It was pages in chapter 5 that stuck out to me when I first read the book back in 2016, where it tells us that Junior's, the bar we visit, will become Fredbear's family diner. Let me read for a second. "Let's go back," she said finally, sounding resigned. "We could have missed something," John said. He slowed the car, looking for a spot to make a U-turn. "We missed a lot back there. Maybe it's down one of those dirt roads." Charlie laughed. "Let's grab a bite to eat, just you and me." John smiled, still checking his mirror for a place to turn. Charlie shivered, and then something caught her eye. She almost jumped out of her seat, sitting straight up. "Stop!" she shouted. John slammed the brakes, and the car skidded, dust billowing all around it. "Hey, are you okay?" he said, but Charlie was already out the car. "Hey!" he called after her. Charlie was running back towards town, but her eyes were on the field beside the road. He caught up quickly, trotting along beside her without asking questions. "Right here," she said. She made a sharp turn towards the edge of the road, where something protruded and snaked across the ground. John knelt carefully, brushing some of the dirt loose. He kept going, uncovering a track that stretched across the road, and went off into the field in both directions. "I think we found your tracks," he said, looking up at Charlie, but she was nowhere in sight. "Charlie?" He took a quick look up and down the road, but there were no cars. "Charlie?" he called again, racing to catch up. But when he reached her, he hung back a little, afraid to disturb her intense focus. There was a little clutter of trees up ahead, gathered together as though around a campfire. "What is that? An old station?" John asked, squinting and blocking out the sun with his hands. There was a long building nestled in the trees, The track veered away, heading off towards the mountains. There has to be a road. Charlie strayed almost randomly. Before long, the ground levelled out beneath their feet. Old pavement, broken with weeds and mounds of crumbling rock, stretched across the field in a narrow, almost hidden path, leading once again towards the small building. "This is it," Charlie said softly. John approached her carefully and then stood at her side. They walked the road together, dodging around the pillars of grass that shot up from the breaks and holes. The building itself was long and dilapidated. It was a single story, with a dark roof and weather-beaten walls. The place had once been painted red. It was peeled and curling, whole long strips of it gone, and wood beneath showing, dark with what might have been rot. Its foundation was overgrown with tall grass, and Charlie thought it looked as if it was sinking, as though the whole structure was slowly being swallowed by the earth. Charlie went warily up the first few steps to the door. John didn't try to follow her right away, sidetracked by something nearly hidden in the grass. "Charlie," he held it up, a battered metal sign with the painted words, "Fredbear's Family Diner." Junior's is Fredbear's, or at least it will become it, with Mustard Man's home definitively being the Afton home. For those that only trust the games to give that kind of evidence, look at how the maps line up between Midnight Motorist and Night 3 of FNAF 4. It is simply the same path. Now, just as a tangential theory, and a sentence I want to draw attention to in all of that, is that Fredbear's has stairs leading to its entrance. Charlie went warily up the first few steps. I started writing this off the back of MatPat's ultimate timeline, a man I hold with the highest regard, but one thing he couldn't get is the location of Sister Location in the timeline. With the stairs though, it seems to me that Ennard is leaving the building that was Fredbear's Family Diner in his walk cycles. This is especially imperative looking at that FNAF 4 night, so where Ennard walks, it is the same path Crying Child walks. He has grass either side, with big cement slabs, and a storm drain at the end. Why, though, would Ennard be leaving Fredbear's? Well, at this time, Ennard is fully controlled by Elizabeth Afton, and she would want to find William. And where would William be? This is where he would be. We play as Ennard in the original FNAF, looking for William. The Core 5 animatronics are preventing us from reaching him. We are the villains. Michael Afton was scooped, November 7th, 1993. On November 13th, we were fired from Freddy's for our bad odour and attempts at tampering with the animatronics. So a day later, Michael's body rejected Ennard and sent him scarpering down into the sewers. A place a future theory of mine on Ennard himself will pick up from. So then, Midnight Motorist. If this really is the first event, then why so? Firstly, who is the Mustard Man? Well, that's William's father. His name in game is Old Man Consequences. It was honestly a theory I didn't think much of before Online Spaces. Couldn't understand. If my voice hasn't clued you in, I'm a British man residing around London, and Old Man is apparently our slang for one's father. Many times throughout my life, asking how a mate of mine's dad is getting on, I've asked, "How's your old man doing?" Old Man Consequences was always someone's father to me, and I figured, especially with its only depiction, being fishing on a lake we see in the Curse of Dreadbear DLC of Help Wanted, with its little dock, only a stone's throw away from the Afton home. He is William's father. And then so, we come to the man in the chair. The last person you need to understand, at least of course if you don't need to know the lore of the Green Bouncer, when of course green in this franchise is just the colour of protection. If you don't like what I'm about to say, I have an alternate idea concerning him. Maybe for YouTube shorts. The man in the chair could simply be William's mother, but they seem to be protective but unwilling to truly face Old Man Consequences. I think different. To understand who this person is, I think we have to look at how Midnight Motorist has been strategically placed in the games. It is an attraction of the FNAF 6 pizzeria, with 3 other playable minigames that also impact a lore keeper ending. In the security puppet minigame, we watch from Henry's point of view as the puppet is unable to save his daughter Charlie. This is Henry's point of view as he shows us, and we see in the Take Cake to the Children minigame, there is a man inside the Springlock Freddy suit. Why wouldn't it be him in a restaurant hosting a party that his daughter is attending, where he's otherwise not around? In the Fruity Maze minigame, Susie speaks to us and tells us he's still here. We hear a car alarm. Who else would the soul inside Chica to hear a car alarm likely be blaring after his partner's escape? We know from the Insanity ending that he knows the kids are in the suits. She is speaking to Henry. The stories that Candy Cadet tells is Henry talking. Who else would record the voice lines for the pizzeria only he should know exists? Why, it's Henry speaking to us, and why Candy Cadet's stories are most related to Henry and what they mean is a story I will tell soon in a future video. So, who is the man in the chair? Why, simply, this is the brother of William. This is the founder of Afton Robotics. This is the man who tried to protect his brother from the consequences of their old man. This is Henry Afton. The idea of Henry being in Afton is what will separate my theories from the rest, and the videos that will come next are only going to become more controversial. Simply, my belief on this franchise is as follows. I believe Scott. There is one retcon in this franchise, and if you know the lore, you may not like it. I think if there is a correct timeline, then many elements of what we accept as fact are simply wrong. There is no way for the community's firm beliefs to all be correct. With Henry being in Afton, the rest of the puzzle pieces will fall into place. The fun times were never killing machines. DCI is not a thing. Ennard is the proper end to every story. I promise you, I will prove it in videos to come. When I first started writing this script, I was writing it alongside a full timeline. Well, I was before I got 10,000 words deep without touching on the missing children at all. But I was writing it off an observation. A mirror, actually, by which the siblings of Michael, the crying child, and Elizabeth were simply the same characters as my proposed siblings of Henry, William, and Aunt Jen from the Silver Eyes. Henry's overarching themes of guilt for the tragedies of his restaurant, negligence in the things he designed, and absolute adoration for the characters of Freddy Fazbear's. It matches Mike's guilt and negligence for the treatment of his little brother, his absolute adoration for the characters of Freddy Fazbear's. William's overarching themes of fear of death, fear of the characters, and theme of feeling small and powerless compared to the abilities of his older brother. Remember, part of William's motive for his actions was jealousy. It perfectly matches with the crying child. William seeing himself in the crying child is a good enough reason for me to believe that the crying child's death was the final straw that led to Charlie's murder, and Aunt Jen's overarching theme of leadership and control when it came to Charlie's life, reclusiveness and death, both her own to the hands of the circus baby machine, and the one she helped cover up, like Henry's. Well, you see how it mirrors Elizabeth, though. I will say, Elizabeth's reclusiveness is not entirely her fault. The way this theory, and all the other theories I have planned to follow, it differs from everyone else's in the space is, I'm working with different fundamentals. I truly believe Henry is an Afton, and the Afton behind Afton Robotics. I am a man who loves finding clarity in overwhelming information, but I have so much free time. I thought I would try solve it, and so I think I did. What is left? I don't think William was ever kidnapped. I believe the small feet leading to the 3 toes proves that, though Scott didn't include glass shards around William's window. I do believe if there was instead glass inside his bedroom, Alderman Consequences would have reacted differently. That he would be tall enough to see in. That William gave enough information that it is understandable that a father in the 1950s would only believe that he went off to that place again. I think what really sells it is that William did not run away in a way that would make sense for someone to just run as fast as he could. As you can clearly see, small footprints lead up to the three toes and then continue. It's almost as if whatever made the three-toed footprints was heavy enough to smash the window, but was light enough that a child could then pick it up. What animatronic has three toes that would make sense for William to love and trust and could be as old as he is? Well, I believe he is called Plushtrap. The reason William is obsessed with the golden rabbit. The reason he feels safe inside the suit that his brother built. What protects him first from their father, but later the souls of the children he killed. The grave is an interesting detail. Realistically, there is no real reason it should exist, but I have two reasons that could explain it. Firstly, it could just be foreshadowing that later that night, Old Man Consequences dies. We know that if he is William's father, then he can't be around any longer. So simply, this is the night that he dies. Chasing William. He has a heart attack or something similar. It's witnessed by William, and he blames himself. It's certainly an interesting idea that would explain why Henry chose to tell us the story of that particular night. A night he also lost a father. The night he trusted William and left his chair to start his work on the animatronics to come. I prefer a darker tone. William is a sociopath, and this is the least controversial claim I will ever make. A common trope for sociopathic serial killers is that they enjoy death. They kill animals. In this case, William was the man to dig that grave. While I believe the footprints were Plushtrap's, to stand that way seems wrong. Here's the headcanon of William I see. William dug the remains of whomever that grave belongs to. If you want to be real dark, his mother. He removed its brain and made Plushtrap think. Later that night, William Afton created Remnant for the first time. While I believe Henry is responsible for the animatronics, William was responsible for Remnant. While he was jealous of his brother's gifts, he made something no one else could. Except his Remnant wasn't complete with Plushtrap. Plushtrap could always move freely, be better than a regular toy. But what William made was FNAF AR's Shadow Remnant. Dark Remnant, I know, but Shadow Remnant because it made the shadow animatronics. I see it like CO2. You don't provide enough oxygen, you get carbon monoxide. A deadly concoction. So hence, in William's case, if you don't provide enough of the correct brain matter, the frontal lobe, or you provide too much else of the rest of the brain, you get Shadow Bonnie, or RWQ, FSFFF, blah 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 blah. You know. It's why he presents himself as a rabbit. It's why RWQ is so deferred by light. It's the very same as Plushtrap. Clearly though, they are both guesses. Clearly the grave is one element I can't say with any real evidence its reason for existing. With Henry as my designated narrator, either could be possible, but either could be wrong. It could simply be a red herring within all of this, but both could coexist, and I feel enough makes sense for me to say I don't have a better explanation. Plushtrap, at least for FNAF 4, was a parody of Annabelle the doll from The Conjuring that got its movie the year before Plushtrap showed up. And Shadow Bonnie, well, I intend to speak on FNAF 2, but his appearance there, I truly believe MatPat was right when he said,
is it possible that FNAF 2 didn't actually happen?
The precursor to Dream Theory, that Jeremy Fitzgerald, who we play as in the game, is the same Jeremy that exists as the missing child inside Bonnie. I just believe that is an idea that makes it so Scott isn't tied down and could use those elements to make a real horror game. One, I could be afraid of actually booting up despite so many years of understanding how these games work and seeing the animatronics jump scare animations. With free roam potential that Security Breach gave us and Ruin expanded upon, I hope that Steelwall and Scott are just not afraid of showing us these characters in a horrifying light. To me, they are some of the biggest potential frights of this decade. What comes next, Scott? I love you. I'm frightened by what you have created. Please, keep it going. For all of time can allow. For all TimePodz can pretend. Don't know where, don't know when, but I know you'll see me for one happiest day. This is my interpretation of Midnight Motorist.